Is that better? We're good? Okay. We're back with ICRC's technical difficulties solved out. A little bit of context. We went out and hired 21CP because it was very apparent in the days following the events of February 7th that any kind of internal report generated by any of the responding agencies was not going to meet a threshold for either transparency, independence, or reliability among the people that were most affected. And so we went out and got got a number of names. We ended up hiring 21CP because of their national reach and their expertise. They promised a 90-day release date. This is at the end of 90 days. We are, as a truth in advertising moment, we have exerted no control over the final outcome of the report. We have asked them to follow their standard operating procedure, which is not to be present at these kinds of events. In their terminology, their report stands completely on its own as self-sustaining. All of you that responded to our invitation for this have been sent a copy of that report, and you should have it. If you don't, please let us know, and we'll forward it to you digitally. As a matter of courtesy and of a significant need to give people a voice in this process, this report was released to officials in Lincoln Heights at 8 a.m. this morning. They met with officials from 21CP at 10 a.m. The only two deviations that 21CP made in their standard operating procedure was to add two specific interviews with officials from Lincoln Heights about the aftermath of February 7th and the events that happened that day, and then to brief them on the findings, which they did this morning. So that's how their participation has come to conclude. We're happy with what they've submitted, and we're going to talk about it here in a second. So with all of the preamble being said, I'd like to introduce Richard Finan. Dick has been our longtime mayor and president of the Ohio General Assembly. So.
Long-time mayor. Well, February 7th was a deeply painful day for our entire community. It brought back traumatic memories and stirred justice, anger, forced difficult conversations about how we as government responded to that attack. That's why we brought in the independent, nationally respected team, CP21 Solutions, to review our response and help us to look for a better way to go forward with our work. Their work has been thorough. If you read the report, they are extremely thorough. They're down to the minute-by-minute look at the situation. It's been impartial. They specifically say we've not interfered in any way with them, and it's driven by a shared commitment to public trust and constitutional rights. Many lessons to be learned. We've had an opportunity to continue to strengthen our relationship with Lincoln Heights Village. I think it's critical to point out that the report found our officers not only protected First and Second Amendment rights, but also, while doing so, de-escalated an incredible, dangerous situation. There could have been fatalities. This is testament to the leadership, the training, and the character of our police department. We are releasing the report, as you received, in its entirety. We'll not only accept its findings, but we will act on them. This isn't the end of a terrible situation. It's the beginning of a rebuilding process that will occur between us and the village of Lincoln Heights. We're working with legal experts to ensure our policies and ordinance reflect today's constitutional realities. And we're launching a new era of community engagement, accountability, transparency, and we will not let hate define who we are. And we have begun that and are proceeding with that as we speak. Thank you.
As has been previously stated, I chair the committee that has oversight responsibilities for public safety. And what I'm here to do is share with you the recommendations from the report. I'm only going to read the base recommendation. For those of you who have a copy of the report or have seen it, there's other information indicated in that section, but it is just supporting information for that particular recommendation. There are 8 recommendations. 6 of them apply specifically to the village of Evendale. The other 2 apply more so to Hamilton County departments or agencies. I would also like to reiterate that our purpose in getting these recommendations is that we intend to follow them to the letter, and we'll be setting up a dashboard, if you will, on our website of where we are towards completion of this. We've already started working on many of these recommendations. So without further ado, the first recommendation states that all Evendale police officers should undergo available APATA training in protest management and crowd control. And for those of you who don't know what APATA stands for, it's Ohio Police Officer Training Academy. The second recommendation is that all Evendale police officers should undergo APATA training as well as available specialized training in the constitutional issues police officers face in performing their duty. The third recommendation is that the Evendale Police Department should draft and enforce a policy requiring members to be trained and tested on new equipment before it is permitted for use in the field. The fourth recommendation is that the Evendale Police Department should amend their body-worn camera policy to forbid any item from being placed as an obstruction to the body-worn camera's view while a recording is taking place. The fifth recommendation states that the Evendale Police Department should initiate a practice governed by policy of routine training refreshers on both agency policy as well as other key law enforcement topics to ensure its members remain up to date and aware of critical issues that may arise. And the sixth recommendation for the Evendale Police Department is that we should draft and enforce a policy requiring officers to notify neighboring jurisdictions anytime an Evendale officer will take action or attend to an official law enforcement matter in its jurisdiction outside of the village of Evendale. The last 2 recommendations, as I indicated before, pertain to Hamilton County agencies or department. So recommendation number 7 states that the Hamilton County Emergency Communications Center, in concert with the Hamilton County Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency, should consider developing and implementing a notification protocol for all schools in Hamilton County to be made aware of dangerous situations occurring that may present elevated risk for school populations. And the final recommendation is that the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office should review all conduct by demonstrators while they were in Hamilton County. Now, I'd like to comment that we will be, as I had stated previously, that we've started working on these recommendations. Some of these are not new to us. We do them on a fairly regular basis, but since they were specifically identified as recommendations specific to the February 7th incident, we will be following them closely and again posting what we do and how we do it. I would also like to say that we will be working with not only Lincoln Heights, but other communities that surround us and/or that participated in support on February 7th on addressing what may need to be more than just a change in Evendale's training. There may need to be broader training so that we're coordinated for response.
Questions? I'm sure everybody has a couple, please.
I'll start, Councilman Henderson. The optics in a situation like this matter, and it's detailed in the report.
Right.
Just talk to community members, neighboring Lincoln Heights residents about that 10-day period, that there was a lot of emphasis on that time frame, about communication and trying to get the right messaging out well. Some wondered if there was any messaging at all, and what you'll learn from that.
I think this is a learning process for all of us. If we could go back as a village and change one thing, it would be our ability in that moment, 24, 48 hours later, to say, we stand against hate, we stand against Nazis, we stand with Lincoln Heights. There's nobody that I've talked to in Evendale, Lincoln Heights, Woodlawn, Glendale, any of the Princeton communities, anybody anywhere who thinks this was okay, who thinks this is something that is desirable to happen in any part of the world, much less our part of the world. We erred too much on trying to be right. We erred too much on trying to have all the facts. We erred too much on not realizing that we would play this as it went and people would be okay with that. We are profoundly sorry that that 10 days caused as much angst as it did. Having said that, during the 10 days, we were constantly in contact with all kinds of members from all different kind of communities. We were reviewing body cam footage. There's a whole litany of things we did. But again, let's keep the eye on what's important, which is we will do this differently in the future.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I came in late, but I didn't hear what action will be taken against the officer that escorted those people in.
No, when you read the report comes out and says that largely the officers, in the way in which they behaved, was consistent with current policies and best practices, and so that this was not a finding of error or a finding of fault. It was about suggesting better ways to do things in the future. Having gone on long enough, Tim is our police chief. If you would take a shot at that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, so in response to that question directly.
Can you state the ordinance or policy, the best policy that you guys are following? Can you state that was written?
I'm not sure which policy you're asking me to state.
Like the policy you just said that you guys are now going to go through the best policy. Is there a policy that's written, or is that just?
We're following generally the guidelines set forth by the International Chiefs of Police. These are not random codes to the Village of Evendale. These are consistent across the state of Ohio and generally across the United States.
Yeah, and generically, I will say we have hundreds of pages worth of policies that all govern our conduct, and there's no way any single policy can ever be drafted to address every possible scenario. What we examined internally, it was very similar to what 21CP examined, but we looked specifically, did any officer, did our agency violate any of our standing policies and procedures? And the answer to that is no, they did not violate any specific policies or procedures. I think I've answered that question as best I can.
Councilman, question for you. So there were some concerns raised from members of the Lincoln Heights community about the choice of 21CP as the firm to investigate. I know you mentioned that, this investigation was to provide an independent look at what happened.
Right.
I know that one of the members of the investigative team is James Whalen, former high-ranking member of the Cincinnati Police Department, involved in a lot of reforms, and a member of the University of Cincinnati Police Williams, so very local hiring official. Were there any concerns about his involvement in the investigation?
When we looked at the wide scope of firms that were available to do this, 21CP was head and shoulders above everybody else in reach and expertise. We said at the original press conference that we understood the concerns voiced by various members of the community that this wasn't perfect. Having said that, at that moment, having somebody with credibility, having had previous experience, and having the manpower to do this was of utmost importance. We understand Jim Whalen's role and how people may or may not feel about that. To do that, we had Charles Ramsey, who's the head of 21CP, come in and meet with Lincoln Heights officials at the outset of this to assuage their fears. Jim Whalen, in his role, is considered a subject matter expert. He is not considered the voice of 21CP.
Councilman Patterson, real quickly to the previous question, had 21CP said in their report, and after reading it, I did not see this language that Officer X or Officer Y, violated some kind of an ordinance or whatnot. You said at the onset 3 months ago you followed the recommendations. Had that been part of the recommendation list, would this be a different point?
A number of people across a spectrum of communities have heard me say this in private meetings, so I will say it publicly. We made an absolute commitment to follow the recommendations of 21CP. If they had come out and said, your officers did not follow standard protocol, they violated this law, this procedure, they went beyond their authority in this matter, we would have followed that where that went. That's exactly what you expect from elected officials. You expect us to try and fix the problems. You expect us to take accountability. You expect us to say, this is what we do. What ended up happening was the report said they operated within standard procedures. Are there things that we can all learn from this that we want to do differently? Absolutely. But within the context of the current policing environment at that moment as it existed, this is what 21CP concluded.
Something in the report that I found interesting was that 21CP reached out to the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and HCSO opted to not take part in the interviews process or any part of this report. Did that stand out to you? Because they were the secondary responding agency in this situation. So what is your response to their...
My response is you need to talk to Hamilton County Sheriff about that. That's a tongue-in-cheek. The other part is they're incredibly important. They are the policing agency for Lincoln Heights. Their involvement in their assessment of this is critical. I understand from talking to them there are some legitimate reasons why they could not participate. They'll be happy to share those with you when you reach out to them.
What type of outreach does the village plan to do in terms of the residents? As you can tell, that not everybody is satisfied or will be satisfied when they read this report. So what type of community relation building will there be to answer any questions that folks who maybe aren't here or won't see these reports will have?
Well, first of all, our hope is that everybody reads the report in its entirety, because I think that there's more information than we could possibly convey right now in that report that may address some of the questions that are being asked. We have been reaching out to various communities, various representatives in various communities, and will continue to do so on whatever level we need to do that. We've previously brought together the leadership in conjunction with the Princeton City School District Board, brought together the leaders of the communities and talked, and we have a follow-up session scheduled actually this week on that. And so our emphasis was to address child safety and trauma first, because we felt it was important. Children are our future, and we need to make sure that they are protected. We will continue to do that. I personally have talked with representatives in virtually every community in the Princeton School District, and will continue to do so. And if there are other people that would want to talk to me, I'm more than willing to. We're very serious about following through on the recommendations. We're very serious about being transparent as to what we have done, are going to do. This is not the end. This is the start of us looking at things. We want to build better relationships. That's one thing we found out, where our relationships with some communities was not as strong as we originally thought it was, and we have addressed that and will continue to do so.
And how do you plan on updating the community as you all are held accountable and changes are made?
Well, as it relates to, well, there are already processes in place, if you will. First of all, we have a working group of council. We've an established forum with the leadership throughout the communities that comprise the Princeton School District. We have on our website a page specifically devoted to the response post February 7th. We also have regular community meetings and council meetings. We've had Lincoln Heights residents at our council meetings and where they raise concerns, we reached out and talked to specific people about what their concerns were and what we could do to address that. And we will continue to do this once this report is digested by people and they have questions. If there's a different kind of forum that indicate should happen, we'll do that.
When do you anticipate that dashboard that you mentioned going live so that people can actively track?
Okay, I don't want to give you the wrong answer, so I'm going to turn here. Isn't it up already? Or are you going to speak to?
So while you are all, my name's Steve Burke, Vice Mayor, and while we were all in here, it went live at 1 o'clock. Okay? So, and we'll keep it updated as we go along in tracking the 8 different items. Well, primarily the 6, because we can't really track unless we have feedback from Hamilton County.
There was something that said that, it's up to the prosecutor's office, their discretion to file any charges based on something, posting signage on the overpass. Is that something that you guys are going to be seeking for the prosecutor's office to hold? There's also some reports that were filed by the demonstrators. That was one of them. Are you guys going to be pursuing those charges against the community members? What's going on with that?
So in relation to the prosecutor's office, I spoke to the prosecutor's office this morning. They received a copy of the report this morning. I believe initially with this incident, once we hired 21CP, the prosecutor's office indicated they were going to wait and see that final report before they made their decision. So they now have that report. They will be reviewing all that. And yes, there was a theft report filed here by one of the Nazi demonstrators. That is still considered to be under investigation until the prosecutor's office makes a decision on whether or not the filing of charges is appropriate.
So on the legal findings, where the analysis and recommendations is that nature, still going forward, are these legal recommendations going to the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office in the sense of not to sway her, but to give them your sense of what is the legal findings of these matters?
Those aren't our findings or analysis. Those are the findings and analysis from 21CP.
But now that, with 21CP Solutions and now step these and Evendale now approve these, correct? So now when you say they're not yours, as 21CP Solutions, as 21CP Solutions says that these legal issues, such as hate speech, is one of them where they clearly said there was nothing official hate speech. Which once again, we're not talking about a person in the right, it's an issue of assault and threatening at that point. There's nothing, any question of that in here. There's a multitude of things that we brought up on the Ohio Revised Code issue, especially when it comes to the boxcar issue. And
Let me do it. Ms. Standers, you bring up, this is simply 21CP's assessment. Wait, hold it. 21CP's assessment of how the legal framework affects their report. So they're not going through and saying this is good or this is bad. This is the legal framework as they understand it and how they used it in assessing the behavior of the police. So
if I'm applying a report against myself, and I'm saying that the people who are required to enforce the laws are not fully enforcing the laws because they're not laws they should be enforcing, there's a conflict.
Well, there is, but the conflict is between the laws that are in place and the laws we wish were in place. One of the other things we're doing, and we,
You don't cite the Ohio.
hold on, guys.
That's what I'm saying, you don't cite the Ohio revised code that we've already established.
But this is my point. This is 21CP's report. This is the report they prepared without our guidance. This is how they chose to frame the issues as they saw fit. Okay, I understand completely that you disagree with some of this. That's perfectly okay.
I didn't say I disagree or not. I have a question on the legal findings in here. This is what Evendale stands on. This is what Evendale is
The thing that
legal findings
we're absolutely committed to is going through the report and taking away the most important things that we can change that make a difference, regardless of what those are. And we are absolutely committed to following this process through. This is not going to, the thing to hold it for a second. The thing, hey, we're good.
Who are racist people hiding behind a badge? That's
Okay.
what's important to us.
All right.
Because while you say you're protecting our children, let us protect our children and let the police protect the
There's
adults.
nothing even in here
The way
about
that it's
Okay,
supposed to
gang.
be.
into a school zone.
So you keep, I just don't understand. Say what it is. This is what we
Okay.
do. We need to know that any
Okay,
policeman
hold on
that
just for a
has a
second.
badge, that they are not a white supremacist. They do
I-
not support that they will not export that into any community.
I understand
That is
that.
what we need. We need to know that
Okay.
we are protected, that we will not be retaliated against or shot dead because a police hides behind a badge. And the police
Okay.
department do not, what you call it?
All
When you
right,
know,
gang.
when you look into a person, when you investigate, when you go on my Facebook and see what type of rigmarole I had did if I would have shot up the place, look
Okay.
at the police officers in the way that you look at every other human being. I'll
Gang,
leave
we're
because I know that's what the
gonna,
problem
look,
is.
it's
See
so-
what I'm saying?
look,
All I'm
we're
trying
trying
to say
very-
is, will we
we
be
are
protected?
trying very
Excuse me,
hard.
I'm leaving.
We are trying,
I'm leaving.
look,
I told you I'm leaving.
hold it. One of the things, this, one of the things that's really, this is,
we all need to learn to think for
Okay,
ourselves
look,
because
here's
they want
part-
us to believe what they say and not what's real. This is
Okay.
happening all across America. They are hiding behind these badges, killing our children, killing our people. And we can't even speak to say, will you stand for us? This is wild.
Okay.
It's wild.
okay. Folks, we have talked about how we're going to do this, about the steps we're going to take going forward. We're going to wind this up. Thank you very much for your attendance. We really do appreciate it. And we will be in touch with you in the future about new developments. Thank you.